Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Feedback Friday, episode number 79 of Feedback Friday. 79, is that right? 79. We're coming up on 80. We should do a big celebration for 80.
For 80?
Yeah, why not? Damian Nelson sitting here alongside Linda Kay. David Hero serving out a 1-week suspension. Well, at least 1 week at this point. Could be extended based off of what we saw yesterday on primetime due to his actions last week right here on Feedback Friday during the fantasy draft. So this week, it's all about your comments, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to get to those and hear your questions and hear what you've had to say to us. But you can participate in Feedback Friday. All you need to do is to interact with us on our YouTube channel and provide those comments on our episodes. We pick comments each and every week for you to, for us to consider, if you will, to be included on this broadcast. But that's not the only way you can be a part of it. You can also send us an email to comments@pwrshow.com. Again, that's comments@pwrshow.com. You can also interact with us on Twitter @PWRShow, @PWRShow on Twitter. So without further ado, let's get to our very first comment. Linda, let's why don't you go ahead and read the comments this week? I'll take a little bit of a break and do the Dave Hero way and just sort of wing it.
Oh, well, let's start this. All right, we've got a comment from Thunder Knight 19.
Oh, oh, Thunder Knight. I thought you said Thundercat.
Thunder Knight 19 says,
Mumra.
in your opinion, who was the face of WWE from 2002 to 2004? By 2002, The Rock was going more into his movie career and was only around for a few months, while Steve Austin walked out in June, didn't return until February of 2003, and quietly retired after WrestleMania that year. So with Rock and Austin gone for most of that period, who do you think was the guy during those few years and why?
It's a good question. I think the answer is obvious, though, Thunder Knight 19. And that man would be none other than the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Because it was Lesnar who beat Rock in 2002 at SummerSlam, became the youngest ever WWE champion, and carried the company until he left in 2004. I mean, things got a little rocky at the end when he was doing the program with Eddie Guerrero. But speaking of Eddie Guerrero, I think he would be another person who was high in that time. And I think that might have also, that might have also been the beginning of God, I completely lost that. The beginning of JBL over on the SmackDown side of things as well as the wrestling god. And also Triple H was making a quite heavy ascension during that time too. So if there's one guy, it's Brock Lesnar. But I think there were a lot of other guys who were playing that role, if you will, of getting to the point of being the guy. Let's face it, you can't follow in the footsteps of a Rock or an Austin. And if you go back to SummerSlam 2002, remember the Rock was booed out of the building because the fans had turned on him because he was going to Hollywood to be an actor. Now, who knew 15 years later he would be the top paid actor in Hollywood and still, even though he doesn't need to, still coming back to professional wrestling every chance he gets. I think things worked out well for The Rock, but this was the turn and the transition of the company to Brock Lesnar in 2002, and it was a good run he had for a solid year at least going through 2003 as the man and the face of the company.
All right, thank you, Damian. So next comment from Lost Legacy, who says...
Where'd he lose it?
Let's find out, right?
Hope you find it.
Yeah. So Damian and David, who's not here.
So it doesn't matter.
To you, what separates a smark and constructive criticism when someone critiques a wrestling show?
That is a great question. And, you know, a smark is one of those people who is a fan but thinks they're smarter than they actually are as to the inner workers of the business. And the constructive criticism element of that is, well, look, you can watch a show. Let's use Payback as an example. Right. And we talked about it on Primetime Extra. Let's use the House of Horrors matchup. So many people hated it because it wasn't this, it was this, it wasn't this. And they only did this way. They should have done this way. When you start digging apart more so about how it should have gone versus telling us or giving criticism as to why you did or didn't like it after it happened, not a preconceived notion going into it, that's the big difference between a smark and someone providing constructive criticism. A lot of you provide great constructive criticism to what's going on in wrestling, but too many of us, as I've made the point many a time on this program, including many smark fans, if you will, they look at what should have been in their mind or the reasoning in their mind from what they read on the internet as to why something happened and use that as gospel, as opposed to simply looking at, did I like it or did I not like it? And if I did like it, why did I like it? If I didn't like it, why didn't I like it? No matter what I think is going on backstage, no matter who I think deserves a push, doesn't deserve a push. One other key point, too, that differentiates Smarks from fans who just give constructive criticism is, why wasn't it Dean Ambrose? Why wasn't it Seth Rollins? Why wasn't it... When you start talking about your darlings and they should have been in the prominent roles or how they should be in, let's say, for instance, the role of a Roman Reigns or a Braun Strowman right now, you're still not looking at whether you liked it or not, and you're too round up in the why it happened. If you can just sit back and as a fan, watch the show, you have every right in the world to say, I didn't like it because ABC, if ABC happened after the bell rung. If ABC happened because of what you read on the internet or what you think happened, then you actually aren't giving an opinion. You're simply trying to prove that you're smarter than everybody else. And a lot of times that gets obnoxious real fast. Enjoy the show. Enjoy what happens from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. I think one point is, as well, is Jinder Mahal right now. I'm loving this Jinder Mahal thing. I think he had a great role at Payback. I think he had a great role on Tuesday on SmackDown. I'm looking forward to the story developing and the match at Backlash. I'm not worried about why it's Jinder. I'm not worried about who it should be if it's not Jinder. I'm not worried about the fact that Jinder was a jobber. I'm enjoying what's happening right now in front of me as entertainment. And that's the difference between constructive criticism and sometimes that term of a smark, especially when someone is critiquing a wrestling show. And a lot of times, too, I'm going on a roll here, Linda. I'm talking a lot. Smarks can never find anything good about it, whereas those who constructively criticize can find good things about even a bad show.
I was going to say, why not enjoy the twists and turns? I mean, if everything was too predictable, we really wouldn't enjoy it that much.
Well, a culture has been formed in the wrestling business where fans need to know. They want to know before they get to the show who's going to win or lose, and then they want to hijack the show, many of them. They want to hijack the show with what they learned by reading it on some wrestling news website that may or may not be accurate. And I don't underestimate the number of those fans who are watching shows like this and who are reading those sites or whatnot, but why don't you sort of put that in your back pocket? If I used all the information I knew about what was going to happen on a show or what the backstage dealings were in this business, I would never enjoy a damn thing. In fact, prime example, I had, without naming any names or giving away too much, I had the opportunity to know, and in some cases I did know some of the things that were going to happen at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando. And when speaking to these people who were in the know, I said, nope, I don't want to know. I want to go and enjoy the show. I want to sit back. I want to relax. I want to be surprised. I want to be happy. I want to be sad. I want to be upset. I want to be enamored by what is going on. And too many times we just can't do that. We want to say, oh, man almighty, Sin Cara wore that outfit on Tuesday night on SmackDown because of this. Oh, man almighty, the House of Horrors match happened that way because of this. Oh, well, Chris Jericho lost or won because he did so twice this week because of this. I don't care about the because of this. Afterwards, yes, it's good to know, but I just want to enjoy what's happening.
And just the element of surprise. And I'm just thinking back at the pay-per-views I watched like in the 90s, not knowing at all. There were, obviously technology these days, you get access to finding out how matches or storylines may turn out, but just enjoy the show.
That's why
I just get that, I think about the feeling I had, watching WrestleMania 10 and 11. Just like, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Think about the great surprises in wrestling. Think about when the Ultimate Warrior came back at WrestleMania 8.
Or
nobody knew.
The big surprise, the returns at Royal Rumble.
Returns at Royal Rumble. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. Think about when Eric Bischoff came to WWE in 2002 or 3, whenever it was. Nobody knew. And I think sometimes that's what gets the ire of the smarks, if you will, too, is because if they don't know, then they hate it. Because they didn't know and didn't predict it or didn't say it was going to happen or that was the way that they would have booked it. But we don't have enough of those great surprises in wrestling anymore because people are at the airports and TMZing things or people are camped out at arenas or hotels. And as you said, technology helps that, but maybe sometimes it hurts that. Case in point, Titus O'Neil earlier this week tweeting out the picture of Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns hanging out the Roman Coliseum when they had just killed each other. I think it was the night before, 2 nights before. So that even transcends into the wrestling world, by the way, and those who are in the business. But a good question, Lost Legacy, and I hope I've explained it as best I can. I have no problem with those who provide criticism, no problem with those who consider those smarks, but spend less time on the internet reading about it before the show and spend a lot more time talking about it after it happens, which is what we do here because it's just more fun that way. Set yourself. The greatest way to make sure you're disappointed by something is to set yourself expectations. So just don't do that. Just enjoy what it is. Payback was a better show this past Sunday than I expected it to be, and I was happy because of that. Because it wasn't about why. It was about what was the show in those 3 hours, and I was entertained over those 3 hours.
Amen. Amen, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson.
I appreciate that, Linda. You got that memo, huh? That TPS report?
We're going to take another comment from David Stronick, who says,
I've heard that name before.
Imagine if a character like Hulk Hogan was introduced in 2017 instead of way back in the day. Do you think he would have been so over with the fans as he once was?
Oh, sweet Jesus, no. There's absolutely no chance. As the crowd dynamics, as you talked about a little bit yesterday on Primetime, the crowd dynamics have changed so much. We don't like the white bread baby faces anymore. There isn't one. John Cena isn't one. Hulk Hogan, The Rock wasn't one. Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't one. The environment has just changed so much where that formula doesn't work anymore. And in fact, in the early 90s, before he left WWE and before he became Hollywood Hulk Hogan in WCW, the Hogan star was fading really, really fast. The fans had turned on him because even back then, some 20 years ago, people were done with that prayers, vitamins, and minerals. What was it? Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and drink your milk? Was it drink your milk?
I'm not sure.
Prayers, vitamins, and, well, you guys will remind us. But that got old even as the wrestling business evolved into the 90s. There's no chance it would work now. Look at the chances they've taken. Look at the John Cena character, if you will. Look at Braun Strowman. Look at Roman Reigns. Look at even AJ Styles. A lot of these people who are most popular in the business fall on that line of heel versus face. And I think it's changed in such a way that you can't deliver that pure face and expect the fans to resonate with them in this day and age.
Can you make an argument about Bayley?
Ooh, I think Bayley is a great argument because she lasted, 4 months doing that whole white bread thing?
Think about her time in NXT, though.
You know, it did work in a smaller audience for a longer period of time in NXT, yes. But I don't think she was surrounded by as dynamic a characters in NXT as she is on Raw. And that's the difference.
Well put.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda. That's good. You know what? I'm now a little spent. I've talked too much. So we're going to take a timeout. When we come back, more of your comments here on the Pro Wrestling Report Feedback Friday. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Feedback Friday, episode number 80. Damian Nelson sitting alongside Linda Kay. David Hero serving out a 1-week suspension and for his actions last week right here on this very program. And we're answering your questions, your comments. I want to remind all of you that you can be a participant in this broadcast by simply commenting on our videos here on YouTube and also sending us tweets, emails. You can email us at comments@pwrshow.com. Again, that's comments@pwrshow.com. And you can also tweet us at PWR Show. I just got a tweet right there, Linda K. At PWR Show on Twitter. We interact with you there. And as you know, I live tweet with you. Didn't this past week because I was traveling, but live tweet with you during Raw and SmackDown each and every week. That's at Damian Nelson on Twitter. So, Linda, with that, let's see who has qualified to be a part of this show this week. Our next comments are what?
Well, the next one's coming from Keith Brooks.
Is he related to Phil?
I saw him about it. I was at C2E2, and I saw,
really?
Yeah, I saw him from afar. He had a separate. He was part of that big autograph. I don't say alley, but so I did see him from afar.
Oh,
but anywho,
how's he looking?
Well,
physically, from the neck down. Well, like body-wise, because he had toned down quite a bit. I wasn't asking you that, Linda. Hey now.
Looking from afar and seeing him sitting down, he looked great.
Good to hear.
Keith Brooks says, Reigns needs to lose. Ambrose needs to lose eventually the Intercontinental title to The Miz. That would get the Shield back together to force a SummerSlam match with the Shield versus Triple H, Samoa Joe, and either The Miz or Bray Wyatt. Wyatt attacked Ambrose, and it will most likely be him. Triple H costs Rollins to lose to Samoa Joe Sunday. Stephanie also interferes, distracting the ref, so Triple H can take Seth out. Where has Stephanie been, by the way?
Stephanie and Triple H are on vacation in some island town or country or whatever. Interesting. I think the takeaway from this, Keith, is the Shield getting back together, which they are now all three on Raw.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility, I would say that. But let's look at the dynamics of the individuals. Seth Rollins, he can go either way. Dean Ambrose, he can go either way. Roman Reigns can go either way. So, yeah, perhaps a Shield reunion would not be a bad thing. And quite frankly, the team of Samoa Joe, Triple H, Miz or Bray Wyatt, whoever, there's some play there. That could be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see Triple H in a match at SummerSlam. He has not yet addressed his defeat by Seth Rollins at WrestleMania because he's been gone ever since. So, yeah, because he's got a right to be upset, this Triple H, because it was due to Seth Rollins, in his mind probably, that he attacked or hit his wife at WrestleMania and took her out. So you could be onto something, Keith, here. I don't know about the other participants on the other side, but it'd be interesting to see the Shield get back together, and perhaps that would help. Perhaps that would help Roman Reigns in the long term.
That's what I was thinking.
Because maybe he then turns on the Shield. And maybe that's the long-awaited heel turn that a lot of people feel is necessary for Roman Reigns.
Yes. Yeah, Keith, I like this idea. I would love to see the Shield reunion, and putting them all together on Raw makes sense. Obviously not something that will happen overnight, so with SummerSlam months ahead, that could be...
Well, I mean, it could be closer than we think. Maybe Roman's going to end up needing help with Braun Strowman, and he goes back to his brothers.
Well, what about, remember just a couple months past with him and Rollins, and they had them tag team a lot, but they kind of...
They even mentioned the Shield at that point, too.
And now with Dean on Raw.
Very interesting. Could be right in front of us, folks. Maybe we just don't see it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe Keith does.
All right. Another comment for Feedback Friday today comes from Jeff Spencer, who says, I know I posted this on an earlier video, but I feel it would be beneficial to both you and your fans. This concerns the PWR draft. Why not have an online PWR draft that involves the fans so that at the end of the year, you can see how they stack up against you?
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Here's the problem. Who's going to keep track of the scoring?
Yeah, how many?
Can we use the honor system, do you think?
Well, also, how many viewers and fans are we going to allow into the draft? I mean, that's
well, you know what? Fine. No, seriously, we can do that. If you want to participate in our draft, you can go ahead and submit your roster of any available talent on Raw or SmackDown to draft@pwrshow.com. Do it via email, draft@pwrshow.com. Include your Twitter name, include your real name, and we'll follow along. And sure, maybe we'll even go ahead and do the scoring with you, for you. And perhaps we'll come up with a prize at the end of the year. Now, you're one event behind with Payback, so that's okay. So you'll be competing against each other, not necessarily David and I. But sure, why not? Let's open it up, Linda. Monumental moment right here. We're going to open up the draft to the fans out there. You can participate. Be a part of the PWR draft. Send your email to draft. I'm writing it down now so I don't forget, and we make sure we get that account set up at pwrshow.com. Draft@pwrshow.com. Submit your 10 names. The rules are simple as it pertains to the draft. 10 names, 5 from Raw, 5 from SmackDown. Because they have pay-per-views, different. That way you're not screwing yourself over in the scoring process over the course of the year. You get points on a pre-show, far lower points than you get on the main show. However, you get points for appearing, you get points for being in a match, you get points for winning, you get points for losing, you get points for winning a championship, you lose points for losing a championship, and you get bonus points at Money in the Bank for winning that. You get bonus points if you cash in Money in the Bank. You also get bonus points for winning at the Royal Rumble. And then at WrestleMania, all points are doubled at WrestleMania.
Do points count for Great Balls of Fire?
Goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire? Like Fireball? What are you talking about?
The pay-per-view.
There's a pay-per-view called Great Balls of Fire?
Yes.
Why am I I did not have that on my memo. My TPS report this week does not have Great Balls of Fire. Where is it going to be?
It's going to be a Raw pay-per-view in June.
Great American Bash wasn't available? Great Balls of Fire. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is this fake news?
No, it's not fake news. I'm telling you.
Wow. All right. Well, I think it's good I didn't see that story. Maybe we'll talk about that on the podcast, the Nelson Factor podcast, which returns this week. We'll see about that. All right. Yeah. So draft@pwrshow.com. Join along, participate with us, folks. Why not? And Jeff Spencer, we look forward to seeing your draft results or draft rosters submitted to us, and we'll give you a 1 week deadline. So by this show next week, by Feedback Friday next week, we want to see your rosters in the PWR Fantasy Draft, and there will be a prize at the end if you are able to win against your other fans who are out there. And you know what? If you even beat David or I, maybe there'll be a different prize, because as I said, you are 1 week or one event behind with Payback now behind us. But interested to see that draft at pwrshow.com. Thank you very much for that, Jeff.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Is that all we got, Linda?
That's all we got today.
Well, that's fine by me. It's so much easier doing this show with you. You stay focused. You participate. You don't get distracted. You don't say inappropriate things. And you don't hit members of the opposite sex.
Yeah. How about that?
It's fascinating,
Doesn't
really,
seem
folks.
too hard.
Well, that has been Feedback Friday. I want to remind you to check us out in podcast form. Take shows with you on the go. 3 different podcasts available to you: Primetime, Feedback Friday, and Reaction. And you can subscribe, review, and rate any of those podcasts, all of those podcasts, on any of your podcast aggregates, your podcast feeders, your Podbean, your Podcast Addict, your iTunes, your Google Play, your Stitcher, your whatever you listen to podcasts on. PWR is available on everything. All you have to do is simply search PWR, and you'll find all of our podcasts that pop up, especially on iTunes, folks. If you could rate and review the podcast, we really, really appreciate your assistance with that. It's the least I think we can ask for all the efforts we put forth to bring you these shows each and every week, and we appreciate your assistance in growing our audience. So with that, Linda, I'm going to give you the rest of the night off.
Well, you have to come with me. Cinco de Mayo.
Is that today?
Yeah.
It's the 5th of May. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I got the month of May.
Yes.
I guess you say what can make you feel this way. My girl?
Yes.
My girl.
Yes.
Talking about my girl?
Yeah.
Margaritas. What's your margarita of choice? Do you like salt or no salt?
Salt, but not the frozen sweet kind. I just like a nice.
Prefer it on the rocks?
Absolutely.
What's your tequila of choice, Linda?
Casadores.
Never heard of that one.
A deer
A deer and a
and a beer.
beer.
I'm a big beer fan. You know, deer, because they're, okay. Casadores has a deer on the logo, so we call it a deer and a beer. Have a Corona.
But it's tequila. Oh,
Beer
the
to
Corona's
beer.
the beer.
Yeah.
Beer with tequila? Do you mix the two? Is it like a Boilermaker?
No.
Whew, geez Louise, I just had a bad thought about that. If you do a Boilermaker with Corona and tequila, they say 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila, floor. This would be 1 Corona tequila floor, I think. Anyways, yes, Cinco de Mayo. What do we celebrate, actually? It's Mexican independence? Is that what Cinco de Mayo is? I'm glad to see we celebrate. Are we still allowed to celebrate that under our new administration?
I believe so. Well, I don't. We will. Go
Maybe we could start having a
drinks.
national celebration, national party at the wall when they build it.
Oh.
Can hand drinks over the top. Folks, happy Cinco de Mayo. Thank you, Linda, for sitting in and filling in. And thank you, all of you, for joining us here on this week's edition of Feedback Friday. We'll see you again next week for another new edition of Primetime and Feedback Friday.